So we've been working on guard retention this week. We've been focusing primarily on the lever control using generally the sleeves. Remember the sleeves, the gi in general just provides us with more options. That's what the gi is used for. It's just a bunch of handles. So we were looking at using the lever control of the gi to affect the rotation of the shoulder to help us prevent the guard pass. We were using either just the sleeve grip or the spider hooks in order to do this. Tonight, though, I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to touch on a specific pass and defense against that pass. This is kind of like the white belt killer pass because white belts suck at defending against it. So let's look at it. So we're going to defend against the double underhooks today. So the double underhooks, if you're unfamiliar, are where if coach is down, I get my arms underneath both of his legs. I generally connect my hands. I load his hips up on top of mine. In the gi, I would cross grip to get the collar control. In no gi, I'm just going to maintain the pressure. I'm going to put his knees against his nose as I sprawl out. I'm going to start turning the corner, driving my hip low, and pass immediately looking for crossface. This can be, again, the white belt killer because it's a really annoying and frankly painful pass to be stuck in. So let's talk about how do we defend against this. We're going to look at this in 3 different phases. We're going to look at it early stage, we're going to look at it middle, and then we're going to look at it late stage. So first is early stage. We want to always try our best to not let our partner get underneath our legs, okay? Whether they're looking for single or double underhooks, we don't want them to get underneath our legs unless it's 1 in, 1 out. And we only want this if we have broken alignment. If we have broken alignment, if they have broken alignment, I should say, then we can invite the 1 in, 1 out. If they have good alignment, we don't want 1 in, 1 out because it sets up the single underhook. So let's look first at our earliest stage defense. So we're just going to start with our feet on our partner's hips. They're going to get both of their arms underneath your legs. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to control the wrist. We're always going to look to reference the wrists here. And we're going to look to just kind of flatten our body as heavy as possible, namely our legs. So I'm going to look to almost do like the backstroke motion where I'm trying to like arch my back a little bit, spread my legs out, and I'm just maintaining a wrist control here. Okay, go ahead and pick up my legs, please, coach. Okay, so I'm just trying to make my hips and my body as low to the ground as possible. And it's all about the leg lever control, because what he's trying to do is he's trying to access the lever to my hip to hoist me up. So if I can create, instead of levers, frames by creating extension of my legs and more of a rigid spine, it's going to be harder for him to hoist me up in the beginning. So if we go from the side here, I don't want his hands to connect, so we beat him to the punch and we get wrist control. I'm going to look to just dead leg and keep my spine rigid. My hips will be off the floor a little bit, and my legs are basically trying to chop his arms rather down. Okay, what this is doing is this is accessing the levers on his shoulders. So I'm pinching his shoulders down, increasing essentially the weight of my legs by a lot, because I'm forcing his arms rather, to pick up a heavier option now, or a heavier object, I should say. Once I'm in this position, I want to make sure that I'm ready to scoop my hips back and bring my legs back in. Okay, this is going to be our main concept for defeating the double unders, is getting our feet back inside of the guard. So again, we're here, immediately reference the wrists. He hasn't hoisted my hips up yet. I'm going to be heavy, legs extended away like I'm trying to do a backstroke motion. Let your partner try to pick you up a little bit. Depending on your size, your partner might be able to, right? I'm like 145 pounds. Most of you guys could probably pick me up and put me on my head. But if I'm going against someone when I'm competing who's about the same size as me, this is essential. I have to know how to keep heavy legs here, okay? So in this position, I'm going to look to just circle my feet in. I could step on his shoulders, his chest, I could go to spider. I'm just going to get right back to my guard, okay? So this is like the earliest possible stage defense. I recognize that my partner has gotten their arms underneath my legs. I beat their hands. I'm matching grips here. I'm creating a heavy leg situation, and I'm just going to circle my legs right back in. Okay, so I'll show it again. We'll do from the front. Very simple, guys. So just start feet on the hips. Your partner dives under. As soon as they do, I reference heavy legs, making sure that I'm kind of doing that backstroke motion. Okay, and once I'm in this position, I just bring my legs back in. I like to sit up because, remember, when I'm in a seated guard, we're not really going to be worried too much about the double underhooks because they have to flatten us out first so we can be ready to grip fight a little bit more. Cool? Any questions?
Yes, sir.
This is really easy, guys. All 3 of the defenses are going to be relatively easy. Implementing them is going to be the harder part. Okay? Ready, 1, 2. Okay guys, any questions? So this is like the earliest possible defense that we can have. They don't get the hands connected, they don't load our hips up. Everything's looking good. But now we're gonna get into a little bit more of a middle stage where they're starting to connect their hands and they start to load our hips up. So we're here. Again, they're looking to connect their hands. Again, in no-gi, there's not as many grip options they can use. They're generally always gonna go for the gable grip here, or the butterfly grip. They can't go for the belt or the drawstring or anything like that. So what we're gonna do is, as they're loading our hips up here, before they put our knees to our nose, if we're in this position, then we're gonna have to go for our late stage defense, which we'll look at in a second. So as soon as they get underneath our legs and they connect their hands together, we're gonna, again, immediately reference the wrists. Okay, now I'm not gonna look to try to break this grip. You know, the gable grip or the butterfly grip, this is just gonna be too strong. I'm just gonna use my C grips here to create frames. As he goes to lift my legs up, I'm gonna fully extend my arms and legs out, creating frames here, okay? So I don't want my legs to be here. If my legs are already here, it's too late. I need to be vertical. So I'm extending both my arms and my legs. And now what I'm gonna look to do is I'm gonna look to sag my hips as I bring my knees out, okay, externally. Now I can simply start bringing my feet back in and we're out. So it's almost like we're trying to slide out from underneath their grip. So he's here, he gets his hands together, immediately I come up. Okay, I'm getting a full extension with my arms. So here are the frames. This is gonna prevent us from getting squished down, okay? So if I'm here and I'm framing really well, it's gonna be hard for him to put my knees on my nose. As I start to drop my hips, notice how my hips are up, guys. I'm creating a secondary frame as well, which I'll show in a side view, which is your spine. But as I go to drop my hips down, I can't keep my legs straight. Because if I keep my legs straight, he's just gonna toss my legs to the side and still pass. So what I want to do is, as I drop my hips down, I no longer have my spine acting as a frame. So now I'm going to use my shins as a frame. So I'm going to kind of point my shins out, my knees, this direction. And now I can start to step on him, hip escape out, and come back to my seated guard. So let me demonstrate real quick what that's, with the side view, what that spine frame is going to look like. So he connects. I reference his hand. He loads me up. And we're here. Okay, so notice how my spine is framing against him as well. So are my hips. If he starts to drive into me at this point, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult. Okay, so we have our frames here on the arms. We have our frame with our back as well. Okay, I'm gonna look to start to sag my hips. As I sag, when my knees come inside of his wrists, I point them out. Okay, once we're in this position, I can circle and come back here. Okay, once my feet are back on their hips, I'm gonna try not to get double underhooked again. One quick thing that I forgot to mention from when we did the early stage is prevention prior to them even putting the hands underneath my legs. One thing that I like to do is when I'm in knee elbow connection, I like to hold my own thighs like this. So that way as they go to start to dive underneath, I can immediately start pushing my own thighs, get heavy and come back in, okay? By holding my own thighs here, I'm creating frames against my own legs. It's just like a secondary backup for my legs. So that's another thing that you guys can utilize for earlier stage defenses. Let's look one more time at our middle stage. So he gets under, he connects the hands together. Try to beat his grips as soon as possible, guys. As he loads me up though, I immediately frame, get my hips up high. Once I'm here, I start to sag my hips down low. I'm gonna start to flare my knees open. Once I'm in this position, guys, you're safe, but only for a moment, okay? Because he can start to recoup the space. So I want to maintain the frame here, start shoulder walking, stepping on him, hip escaping and coming out. Okay, I'll show one more time from this view again without talking, slow motion. Here we go. It's easier to defend double underhook passes in no-gi. Let's just remind ourselves of that because there's just less handles for him to control us with. So in no-gi, we can be a little bit more wiry and hard to hold down. Does anyone need to see this again? On two, 1, 2. Any questions on this sort of like middle stage defense where they started loading the hips up? So if you guys want to see like a crazy great example of this in practice, look up Rafa Mendez rolling with Andre Galvao at Art of Jiu-Jitsu. Andre Galvao is like way bigger than him, but he's just got a killer double underhook pass. And Rafa Mendez survives like the entire round with this exact defense of just using the arms to frame, keeping the hips heavy. Hafemenez just so happens to be my favorite jiu-jitsu guy, so look it up. But let's look at more of like a later stage defense. This time they've already connected the hands, they've loaded our hips up, maybe they've already gotten our knees up towards us. We're gonna be using the same sort of lever control like we did where we're using the elbows. And we're gonna use that same leg press motion along with the lever control to start to sit up. It's almost gonna be the same as what we did earlier on Tuesday with the lever control against the Torianda. So real quick, get into this position here. So my opponent gets his hands in, he loads me up, and he starts getting my knees up towards my nose. So the nice thing actually about Nogi is because his hands have to connect like this, he's already creating exposure on his elbows here. So it's gonna be very easy for me to grab his elbows. Let's say if I had the gi on, he could be reaching underneath my belt, and now his elbows are a little bit harder to get to. But because it's Nogi, he has to be controlling in this way, which means that his elbows are gonna be exposed. So we're gonna be referencing the elbows here. As he goes to start to turn the corner and turn me around, I'm gonna be leg pressing, and I'm gonna, just like we did last class on Tuesday, guys, I'm gonna be pushing this elbow forward as I start to get up. And then I hip escape out and get back to my guard. Okay, so again, we're here, he loads me up, he starts to lean me forward, I'm referencing his elbows. So this is a bit of a timing-based one as well, guys. As he starts turning, I have to understand which side he's going towards. If he's going towards my right side, I'm gonna be pushing the right elbow. If he goes to my left side, I'm gonna be pushing the left elbow. Remember, I'm gonna start off with that leg press motion because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change my legs from levers into frames. So I'm trying to stomp my feet to the floor as I gain lever control on this arm. So as he goes to turn that corner, I'm extending my legs, keeping my hips up high, and I'm gonna be pushing this arm away. Okay, I can start building up to my base and hip escaping out. If our hips stay low, so like if I keep my hips sagged down as he goes to turn the corner, it doesn't matter how hard I stomp and push. I have to get my hips off the floor, okay? So I have to be really driving with my hips and trying to push him forward. So I'm driving as I'm pushing this arm to try to create that external rotation on that shoulder here and start hip escaping away. Remember, if you've already gotten into this double underhook position, you've messed up. So it's gonna be a tall order to try to defend against this late of a pass, but try it out, okay? The one thing to remember is that know when you're beat. You know, if you're already completely smashed up in this position, and let's say you're not comfortable keeping your knees against your face right here, then just let your partner pass and just move on, okay? Because if that's not comfortable for you, trying to defend, you could injure your neck and things like that. So just be conscious of that. Once I'm here, I'm referencing the elbows. As he goes to turn that corner, my hips go forward as I start to try to push that arm and get up on my opposite arm, okay? So I'm, again, pushing it away, opposite hand extends, and I'm pivot escaping. Very Marcelo Garcia-esque. He's very well known for using the elbow to try to push away, like from side mount and things like that. So it's the same sort of setup. Again, we'll do from this perspective. Your partner got double unders, they hoist you up, and now they're putting your knees against your nose. We reference the elbows. As they turn the corner, my hips go up, I'm extending, and I'm coming up and trying to hip escape away from them. You might end up in a position where, you know, they just got a really good grip. Maybe they're still holding onto the legs here, okay? It's fine, guys. Just keep moving, okay? Just keep hip escaping. We can be changing from the arm to the head, you know, stiff arm in the head, keeping the head away. You know, you can combine this with other guard retention movements, the half Granby, the full Granby, things like that, depending on your flexibility and your knowledge. All right, so we'll go one more time. Okay, guys, does anyone have any questions? Yes, gotta go with the timing of the movement, though, okay? I'm going with them. As they're turning the corner, they're moving this way, I'm going with them, and then I'm pushing that arm through, and gotta get up on that back arm, okay? Does anyone need to see it again? Ready, 1, 2.